Guess what, baby? It's time to go to Portugal, but not necessarily for the reason that you would want. And I don't want to pretend that this is like a Portugal problem. It's kind of just a world problem. But I feel like I've never been able to talk about this problem with Vinnie outside of Spain before. So I'm really going to enjoy the change of scenery. So if you happen to miss the Champions League, there was a match between Real Madrid and Benfica. Now, this was obviously interesting for a lot of reasons because Benfica was only in the knockouts because of a last-second goal by Anatoly Trubin, their goalkeeper, in the Champions League stage against Real Madrid, a goal that also, it made sure Real Madrid wasn't going to finish in the top 8 either. So very consequential shit happening all around. Huge beef. Benfica, of course, is one of those places with fans that genuinely put the self-worth of their club over their own health or over their any other thing. And, there are people that argue that's a good thing, people that argue that's a bad thing, right? But Benfica is the type of club that you wouldn't be surprised if there was somebody with a full body tattoo of a Benfica kit underneath the actual kit that they were wearing to the match, just in case they got called into the match and somebody ripped off their shirt, they would still be able to play buck naked, while also having the full kit there, which I believe allows it to be legal for them to keep playing just in service to their club. And so as Real Madrid is pulling up to the game, throwing shit at the bus and all that stuff, that's always right on, on the line for me. Like, it's fun to set off fireworks outside of hotels and stuff. But when you start actually trying to maybe break windows on a bus, then, things change. If you're actually endangering people with your fandom, that's usually where you're going to catch me on the, hey, let's not endanger people side of things. But it ends up being a really aggressive but entertaining atmosphere. 0-0 early in the second half. And Vinicius Jr., every once in a while, players of this quality do this. He pulls this out. Just a little cut in, little absolute banger, right? Players of this kind of quality will remind you that they have that kind of quality. That in this, just absolute cauldron of noise and intensity and people throwing shit at the bus and people, saying everything under the sun towards you, you're able to come in and just do a little quick, right-footed Arjen Robben cut, snapshot in the corner, boom. Real Madrid ends up winning the match 1-0 because this was the only goal scored in the entire match. Vinicius Jr., not a guy to shy away from antagonizing whoever he's playing against, or literally antagonizing people on his own team. Just ask Xabi Alonso. Right, goes over to the corner flag and lays down a little samba, a little hip action on the corner flag. Now, because football fans generally have the masculinity more fragile than, I don't really know how to come up with an example on the other end of that, but typically have very fragile masculinity in this situation, they become very upset, right? But I'm not even necessarily saying that's a bad thing. If I was a fan of a team that, Vinicius Jr. was, making sweet love to the corner flag of my club, I'd be really upset too. I'd be yelling all sorts of things at him. And you know what? This actually, I don't think has anything to do with the crowd, because the crowd, I don't believe at any point in this entire situation had any fucking clue what was going on. I actually believe that, because the incident in Spain, the incidents that have happened in Spain, I should say plural, were kind of crowd-based incidents, right? There was a group of people in the crowd that were doing racist things, being racist, being derogatory towards somebody else because of the color of their skin. And, this was a player, which is interesting because this is a Champions League knockout match that is now about to get mired in a racist incident. So what happens after this? I want to see if I can find the actual footage here. I pulled up so many different things. So I think I've got the footage somewhere of what actually happened. There it is. So after the goal, right, this guy, Prestianni, a guy named Gianluca Prestianni. I'll give you one guess where he's from. No, nice guess. He's from Argentina. He walks up to the guy being Vinicius in this situation, right? And he does this. Look, he walks up to him. He walks up to him, covers his mouth with his shirt, and says something towards Vinicius, who's not even looking at him. This is just, if what actually happened, which it looks like it did, this is just incredibly weird behavior, right? There is no excuse for racism, but I can at least understand the human reaction if you were raised in an environment where that was way more acceptable. If this guy is going at you, if Vinicius Jr. is in your face, really going at you, he's not in Gianluca Prestianni's face. He is not even looking at Gianluca Prestianni when Gianluca Prestianni clearly makes the decision to go, fucking bitch. Except that's not what he said. Because if he said that, that would be, all right, we're talking some trash. We're stepping this shit up. You mean you're meaning some business. Bitch ass piece of shit. You know, you don't hold this up to maybe say that. Maybe you do. You don't want to offend your grandmother who's watching in case they hit you with a close-up. But he pulled his shirt up and called him a monkey. That's what everybody's always censoring it. Everybody's always like, oh, there was a racist incident. I don't know YouTube's stance on me being able to tell you what they're saying actually happened. That's what they're saying actually happened. Right? And this is not some mystery. He immediately, Vinicius goes to the referee and says, I have been racially abused, racially attacked. Dude was just racist to me. Flagrantly, belligerently, directly. He wasn't in his face. Again, not that excuses racism, but I can't even figure out the justification for Gianluca Prestianni in this situation. Assuming that he says that, which based off the way he acted before and after, it looked like it. And the way everybody else reacted too, it really looked like it. I don't understand why. Even in trying to analyze, if you grew up in an environment where that was way more acceptable because that environment hasn't been shown the light of the 21st century. And, the idea that, hey, maybe if you actually meet a black person someday, you probably shouldn't just be spouting a bunch of racist stuff at them. But this wasn't in the middle of an argument. It wasn't after he'd just taken a big heavy tackle from Vinicius or vice versa or whatever. He walks up to him, seeks him out. Maybe because he was dancing with the corner flag so much. I'm sorry, I thought this was a free country. Right? He walks up to him, seeks him out like a missile, and just drops it on him. Just drops it on him. Right? Now, Vinicius is, and we have to have this conversation every time this sort of thing comes up around Vinicius, because I don't like Vinicius. He's annoying. He's kind of a baby. His ego is the size of Alaska when you go on those maps that show you, the true size of something and you drag Alaska over the continental United States and it's just the fucking whole thing, right? I've never liked Vinny, but he's one hell of a player. And I will give him a ton of credit for one thing. He stands up for himself. He doesn't take any shit, particularly this shit. And because Vinny's kind of a pompous ass, he attracts these people. They feel compelled to tell him their thoughts on that fact. He's almost like this magnet walking through life because he's, a pompous ass. And as he walks through life, he just pulls the people that are going to be racist out of the woodwork. If he just scored and went, very good, sir, you wouldn't know Gianluca Prestianni was out here dropping this stuff. But he goes out, he's having fun, he's dancing with the corner flag. He actually got a yellow for that, by the way. So he paid the price for that, literally. And then Gianluca Prestianni just gets sucked into the magnet. And it looks like decides to be directly racist to him. Now, the referee, to his credit, right after this happens, makes the signal to take a racism break. Apparently, the entire Real Madrid team is informed of what's happening. Vinicius Jr. walks off the field. They say that whatever Vinnie Jr. is going to do, they're going to follow him. They're going to support their teammate, right? This is what they've done before. It's the right thing to do. And the Benfica fans start losing their mind because Real Madrid is now walking off the field. Now, the Benfica fans don't know what's happening. I don't know the referee signal for racism delay. You know what I mean? I don't what is it? I have no idea. But apparently the referee's done that in the same way that this is VAR. There's something for racism delay, and Vinnie Jr., basically they leave the field. It was a Senegal-Morocco situation. They kind of leave the field. Eventually they come back out and play out the rest of the match. Vinnie Jr. has a conversation with Jose Mourinho. I just feel like that is, worth mentioning. I don't really know what was happening in this conversation. This is a video from the stands. You see Jose Mourinho go over to Vinicius, and they have not an animated, angry conversation at each other, but kind of the mutual respect of Vinicius for, one of the great managers of the game, who of course is the manager of Benfica, having this conversation and trying to figure out what's going on. And I don't know what Jose, I'm not even going to try and take a guess. It's just worth acknowledging that Jose Mourinho, who is a massive, black hole of gravitational pull. He was involved in this situation. He was there, and stuff might be coming out around how he was involved in this situation or support that he was offering to Vinnie or whatever, right? Because he also ended up getting a card as part of this situation. The rest of the match was colored with stuff like this, where you have Kylian Mbappe going to Prestianni and saying, "You're a fucking racist," in Spanish, of course. Now, the funniest part about this to me is how unbelievably guilty Prestianni looks. I'm going to give Mbappe a shout out here. This is more leadership than I feel like I've ever seen Kylian Mbappe show. He's backing up his teammate, trying to be the type of person that Xabi Alonso is basically observing Real Madrid doesn't necessarily have. They don't have Sergio Ramos. They don't have Luka Modric. They don't have these guys that have been able to anchor the team with this kind of leadership and this kind of elite mentality. But Mbappe, another guy that I've never, I like Mbappe more than I like Vinicius, but I'm not over here holding him up on a pedestal. I really like what he did here because he also exposes like Prestianni, who is a young kid. He's 20 years old. Okay, he's played 27 matches for Benfica. Right? This is not, he's on the complete opposite end of the experience spectrum from somebody like Mbappe or Vinicius. Clearly, because he's never been exposed to this amount of intensity and now this amount of scrutiny because his name is everywhere. It's the first time I've ever heard his name. Yeah, I mean, outside of maybe an offhand mention playing Football Manager one time as a guy to watch for the future, I couldn't have even told you he was on Benfica. And now he's in the eye of the storm. But Mbappe tracks him down and says this, and look at Prestianni's face. He can't even muster like a full denial here. You know what I mean? Like he says that to him, and he just goes, it's not a full-throated denial. He folded. He folded. And that makes me feel nice. Because, if you're going to be racist, which it seems that Prestianni has been, I need to emphasize there's no recording of him saying it. There's just the reaction of literally fucking everyone, except for the Benfica fans who, again, it seems pretty clear they didn't know what was going on. They thought Real Madrid was just complaining about something. I don't know how it would have changed the situation if they'd announced it in the stadium, exactly what was happening. Like, I don't really know how all of that played out. But I believe, I don't think a good number, at least, the Benfica fans had any idea what was going on. They thought Real Madrid was just, Real Madrid's a pretty annoying club, that they were complaining about something and threatening to walk off. And there's the whole background of Morocco and Senegal and how that played out. And they were really mad. They threw a bottle at Vinicius Jr. at one point, standing over in the corner. And, hold on, I'm not rewinding enough. The bottle just comes down and hits Vinnie in the elbow, right? And that's a dangerous situation. You should never be doing something like that. But Prestianni looks guilty. And he looks like a bitch. He does. He looks guilty and he comes out of this looking like a complete bitch. Because, if you're going to be racist or if you're going to start some shit, this is just, me growing up playing pickup basketball. If you're going to start some shit, you got to be willing to finish it. I have had my nose broken over trash talking in pickup basketball. And at a certain point, you just go, you know what? Fair. I was talking a lot. Right? This is a completely different level than trash talk. Being racist is not trash talk, in my opinion. Just being a shitty human being. There's so many better ways to talk trash. It takes an incredible and remarkable amount of lacking in creativity. Like an incredible and remarkable lack of creativity to be racist in trash talk. Look up the other person's mom's name. Start from there. If you really want to go down the Jamie Vardy route, right? There's a lot of ways you can do this. That's just lazy, dumb, insensitive, set society back. You want to set the other person back. You don't want to set society back. And not only has he done that, he's wilted away like a child that got caught peeing on a wall in the basement. Like a 3-year-old, I didn't do it. No. Has the same energy. Like, what do you, I fed the goldfish. It's like embarrassing the way that he handled it. I mean, obviously, it's embarrassing what he did, if that is in fact what he did. And I hate that I have to keep including that because it just seems overwhelmingly like that's what happened. From the hey, bitch, from that element of it to the way everybody reacted the entire time that was on the field and the incredibly vocal way that the Real Madrid players reacted. Arbeloa said Vinny decided what to do. We would have done whatever he decided. I'm trying to find other quotes. Mbappe in the mix zone. We have to set an example for the children to look up to us. These aren't things we can accept. We shouldn't generalize. I have Portuguese friends. They treated me very well. When someone behaves like that, it has to be said. People don't know what happened, and that's why they booed us. I have nothing against Benfica, the club or its coach, who for me is one of the best, and the club is the best in Portugal and one of the best in history. We can't accept that a player who plays in Europe's top competition behaves like that. This kid doesn't deserve to play in the Champions League anymore. Leaving the game. I asked Vinnie what he wanted me to do. Whatever he wants to do, we'll do it as a team. Important thing is not the game. That's the problem. Now, this is a Champions League. We've won, but there's something more important than football. We have to explain it so that young people understand it. It's not just Mbappe. It was Fede Valverde. It was Tchouaméni. It was all these guys after the game that were really echoing like, look, he said something really terrible. This should not be happening. They made it very clear. And I think based off of all of those reactions, it was very clear that what Prestianni did was kind of, at least in the ballpark of what they were saying. I've seen some defenses basically from Benfica players or whatever. I haven't been able to actually track down the source of them in the first place that maybe, he wasn't saying this. He was saying another slur. You know what I mean? And you're like, well, that doesn't necessarily, make it a whole lot better. All right. So this whole situation, I think, is going to be a real example and a real test of the willingness of UEFA to be able to enforce this kind of thing. Because there is no hiding. This is a Champions League knockout tie. And I commend, as much as it makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit to say this, I commend Real Madrid, I commend Mbappe, and I commend Vinnie. Because as much as he is a drama king, and he is, he stands on business with this. He does not tolerate it. He immediately reacts to it and addresses it. And he ends up making this guy look like a clown, which is exactly what this guy came out of this situation looking like. And I'm interested to see what the follow-up is.